Elon is completely against that, right? His whole point, like I mentioned, was let's not have any, wasteful spending. If we have to spend, it has to be on absolute essentials. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Pioneers Pathway podcast, joined as always by your two favorite co-hosts. It's me, Shara, joined as always by my good friend Liam. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How about you? All good?
All good, Liam, all good. So, on this podcast, we regularly touch on different things that are happening in the world, notably the US. Obviously, the US is one of the, biggest players in the global economy. And they've been in the headlines quite a bit recently, and especially two of their most, famous big characters, Elon Musk and Donald Trump. But they seem to have a bit of a falling out recently.
Yeah, it's been sort of a relationship which everyone was a bit skeptical about. Two very, very they're both of their characteristics, they're very dominant people, very temperamental people, they've had a bit of a falling out. It's over the spending bill, isn't it? It started with the bill which went to Congress. There was some issues there, and it sort of then progressed a lot further.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously the reason behind it is the bill, like you mentioned. But it's quite interesting how these two were sort of joined at the hip for essentially a good 18 months. And now, in the space of a week, we see a huge divide. It's gone quite public as well.
Yeah. To be honest, it doesn't surprise me because if you saw in the first Trump White House, people would come and go. There was sort of a very big revolving door. Loyalties were very, very temperamental. And so this is sort of the next best thing. But I think what's different in this sense is how much power Elon really wields in the White House and in politics in general, and how much Trump sort of depends on that. Whether that's sort of the funding for the campaigns, but also sort of Twitter is a megaphone for getting to supporters and things like that. It's quite a big ripple effect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've established that both of these guys are big personalities and with a lot of power and influence. I mean, Elon as well. A huge repercussion of this is Elon has huge government contracts, whether that's through SpaceX or Tesla. So this will have a wider impact on him and Trump. It's not just a merely political thing; it's a huge business thing as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to see how this will pan out because I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of days everything is patched up or there's some sort of truce. I would never be surprised at that sort of thing. But it's definitely something to look at. I think in politics there's such a big relationship between politics and business, and when politicians come to rely on big business people, it's never going to work out well in the long term.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, sort of going back to the original point, the reason behind this falling out, the reason being the bill is boosting US government debt. Now, that's a huge problem, isn't it? So on this time, I'm siding with Elon. What about you?
See, I think there's always been a Republican sort of conservative kind of approach to spending. They want to cut the debt down. They want to cut spending down. There are different ways of approaching that. I think what the Trump administration have done is really focused on the tax cuts, which will hopefully sort of re-engage the economy to then be able to be less reliant on the government. But I think it's in Elon's interest. He's just spent a lot of time with Doge, cutting down on spending. So it's really in his interests to maintain that. And so I think that's where this sort of bill really hits home, and really it really impacts the work he's done, the focus he's done on his work. And so that's why I can understand why he's obviously angry.
And absolutely, it's been sort of Elon's whole mantra, isn't it? That he wants to be more efficient. He wants to get everything more efficient, whether that's with his own organizations, Tesla, the Twitter, he had a mass layoff. I don't know if you remember when he first took over 2-3 years back. So it's always been this thing of let's, cut out the wastage and let's keep it as efficient as possible. So it's quite interesting how, the world of politics, you could be joined at the hip essentially for the best part of 18 months, and and I wouldn't say a minor, but one issue could lead to such a huge, falling out, and it has a huge impact as well.
Yeah, but sort of just going back to sort of the reason why Elon's there, government spending, and sort of the government debts and sort of excessive government inefficiency is hampering down sort of the effectiveness of what we do, and sort of private sector work as well. Public and private sector work is being impacted by what is this, like, government bureaucracy, government inefficiency, and America, which has always been sort of the land of sort of very big personal freedoms. They've always talked about that. It is a prime example of where it's so hard to do things. And sort of you're seeing this spending on things which are, quite frankly, just ridiculous, right? It's like, why would you spend £1 million on things which are clearly such wastage?
Absolutely, and I think, what you mentioned earlier ties into that perfectly. Elon is completely against that, right? His whole point, like I mentioned, was let's not have any, wasteful spending. If we have to spend, it has to be on absolute essentials. And that was the entire purpose of him, working in Doge. In fact, he was obviously he didn't meet his targets, but if you look at relative terms, he was quite effective in doing so. So that's his whole, ideology. And if you are, transferring that, and you see what Trump is doing, it's a complete contrast. And when you have such a contrast, and again, with the two big, strong personalities, it's not really going to end well.
No. No, and that's the problem. That's the problematic thing here. I read that a sort of Elon Musk's companies, I know with SpaceX specifically, have got such big government contracts, and I think SpaceX has about 21 billion US dollars worth of contracts since 2008. That's massive. That's massive, and that's leverage that Donald Trump can play. But on the other side, how much money has Musk pledged to the Trump re-election in 2024? I think it was probably over about 200 million pounds worth of donations pledged to that. That's huge. And I don't think Donald Trump would have been able to do as much campaigning, as much spending in his re-election bid if Elon Musk wasn't around.
You bring up a very valid point there. I mean, Elon himself has highlighted that in one of his tweets recently. And in fact, like, one of the things that you mentioned at the very start, okay, whilst you mentioned it's 200 million pounds officially, I would argue the money he's put into Twitter, right? Like you said, that's been a huge, that's essentially been a huge way of them communicating. The way Twitter has transformed the entire, if you look at the entire political dynamic of Twitter, that's completely transformed. They went from quite, liberal, and now it's very, pro-Trump. So that, I would argue, is, in a way, that also plays into it quite a bit. So whilst it might seem to be 200 million on paper, I'd argue it's quite a lot more through Twitter. Yeah,
exactly. I know they've got sort of Truth Social, and there's other sort of media outlets, but undeniably X, Twitter, whatever you choose to call it, it's a force to be reckoned with, and Musk's control of it is massive.
Absolutely, and obviously, like you mentioned, there are other platforms out there. Trump has his own Truth Social. There's a new one, Blue Sky. You obviously have Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But end of the day, X/Twitter is a legacy platform. It's been there from the start. All your major political figures, they're not the most tech savvy, right? No offense to them. But they have always been using one platform. So they're all, the legacy thoughts or their views are more likely to be on that. That's the place where you want to be, right? And that's where you're going to get all their viewpoints. So, and that is why it's one of the more crucial platforms. And Elon having control of that heavily helped Trump, right? In fact, Elon himself said, I don't think Trump would have won if I didn't buy Twitter. And
It's true.
it's okay. Maybe there might be a case of maybe he might have won, maybe not by as big of a margin. There's obviously that for debate. But, the influence Elon had on that through buying Twitter, you cannot, understate it. It's been immense.
Exactly. No, definitely. Right, I think maybe that leads us to quite good conclusion in terms of what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's definitely something to keep a lookout on. But if there's any guests or any people who want to comment on this, let us know what you think, and we can always come back to this topic in the next few weeks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you have very strong views opposing Elon's thoughts, or if you have very strong views opposing our good friend Mr. Trump, do obviously let us know in the comments. Write an email to us.
Start a debate.
DM us.
Yeah. Start a debate.
Exactly.
A bit of controversy, a bit of questions to and fro. That's what we want. We want a debate.
Absolutely.
We want to hear your views. So yeah.
Absolutely. Keep listening. You know where to find us. Thank you.
Cool.